In the Season 3 finale of Star Wars Rebels, the Bendu demonstrated just how different that he, the one in the middle, was from Kanan and the rest of the Jedi. After declining to partake in Kanan's fight against the Empire, and becoming enraged at being called a coward by the Jedi Knight, the Bendu told Kanan, "Perhaps it is the will of the Force that the Jedi, and all your kind, perish." For me, this was perhaps the most memorable line from the entire season. While the motivations of the Sith in eradicating the Jedi Order is quite clear, the idea that the Force would also attempt to destroy the Jedi is something different entirely, and would demonstrate important concepts regarding the Force itself. But is the Bendu correct? Would there be reason for the Force to strike back at the Jedi? In this video expose, I will explain why the Bendu statement makes sense, given the emergence of the concept of balance that exists within the current canon, as well as the potential for dire consequences for those unable to understand the Force in its totality. Before looking at the important canon materials that point to the Bendu being correct about the destruction of the Jedi being the will of the Force, I would point to a few important examples from Legends where the concept of the Force striking back at those who denied its true nature was seen and made clear. In the novel Darth Plagueis by James Luceno, there's a clear understanding that the Force itself could destroy those who veered away and violated the nature of the Force. Darth Plagueis shared the same belief as the Bendu, wherein just as the Bendu statement suggests that the Force's will resulted in the destruction of the Jedi, Plagueis believed not only that the Force willed the Jedi to be removed from the galaxy, but that the Sith were the entity to do it. Plagueis' view that the Force elected both he and Sidious to be the ones to destroy the Jedi was a result of his belief that the Jedi no longer served the Force, and were ultimately the agents of chaos within the galaxy. As Plagueis explained to Sidious decades before the start of the Clone War, the Jedi's move away from service to the Force crowned the Sith as the new rightful leaders of the galaxy. For Plagueis, the Jedi no longer adhered to the wishes of the Force, but rather to the wishes of the corrupt Republic. Their order had become crippled and shackled by their obedience to the Senate, and really to the Order's High Council, wherein the Jedi supported every measure taken by the Republic, no matter how wrong-headed it was, and despite the fact that it would continue to destroy galactic unity. Therefore, Plagueis, and by connection Sidious, believed that the Force would strike back at the Jedi through the Sith. But the novel Darth Plagueis didn't merely include the concept that the Force could strike back at the Jedi, but also the Sith as well. In fact, when seen through the lens of the novel, the actions of Darth Vader in Return of the Jedi can be viewed as an attack on the Sith and the dark side that had its origins in the actions of Plagueis decades earlier. Roughly 20 years before the start of the Clone War, Plagueis and Sidious entered into a meditative trance, wherein they successfully managed to tip the scales of balance in favor of the dark side within the galaxy. However, during the meditation, Plagueis, in many ways, became too greedy. More than just attempting to tip the balance of the Force to the dark side, he attempted to create life by mentally reaching out to those inhabiting the galaxy. This act by Plagueis was a direct violation of the nature of the Force, as the two Sith Lords attempted to take the place of the Force in creating life themselves by manipulating midichlorians across the galaxy. When Plagueis felt his attempt fail, the failure, in combination with an increasing amount of setbacks that followed, caused him to theorize that his attempt to create life was actively opposed by the Force. And Plagueis was correct. 9 years after their attempt to create life, when it was discovered by both Plagueis and Sidious that the Jedi found a 9-year-old boy who was believed to be the prophesied chosen one of Jedi legend, the two Sith Lords panicked, as they realized there was a strong possibility the boy could be a creation of the Force itself to strike back at the Sith. Although Sidious would create a new path for Anakin, their initial predictions were correct, as Anakin would ultimately go on to destroy the Sith and re-establish the balance in the Force that had been misaligned by Sidious and Plagueis. Therefore, looking at these examples from Legends, it wouldn't be far-fetched in the slightest to believe that the Bendu statement is correct. That is, that the Force would strike back at the Jedi. Further, I believe that the Legend's idea that the Force would retaliate against those who pervert the true nature of the Force would work well within the emerging concept of the Force within canon, thereby making Bendu's words to Kanan extremely enlightening. Since the release of the Episode 8 teaser at Celebration, I've made a number of videos demonstrating how the current canon is promoting the concept that the Force's true nature is one of balance between the light and dark. Because the idea of balance can be interpreted in a number of different ways, a better way of saying it is promoting the totality of the Force. That is, the Force doesn't exist as separate entities, wherein one should follow and dedicate themselves solely to either the light side or the dark side. Doing so perverts the Force's true nature, as there is only the Force, and not merely singular concepts of light and dark. I won't rehash all of the evidence in the current canon, as I've outlined those in a few previous videos. For an outline of that evidence, I would point you in the direction of videos such as Why Luke Skywalker Must End the Jedi Order, and Balance, Luke's Dark Side Evolution by the Disciples of the Wills, which I will link to in the comments section below. I believe that this new, total conceptualization of the Force is crucial to the conclusion that the Bendu was right. The Force would have reason to strike back at the Jedi for perverting the Force's true nature, just as it was seen within Legends. Because the Jedi followed only a singular component of the Force, the light side, it would seem almost inevitable that they would perpetuate a never-ending galactic struggle between themselves and those devoted to the dark, putting trillions of galactic inhabitants in the crosshairs. Bendu's reference to it being the Force's will that not only the Jedi, but all your kind, is crucial in this regard. I believe Bendu is referring to both Jedi and Sith alike when he says your kind, as he means all those who only see the Force in its components and not in its totality. It's why the Bendu wouldn't help Kanan fight the Empire. He sees their war as a petty battle between those who don't understand the Force, and choosing a side would be an abomination to his position as the one in the middle, as one who understands and accepts the totality of the Force. But outside of the concept of balance regarding the Force that's emerging in the canon, there's another example from the canon that I'd like to point to that demonstrates why the Bendu is correct. Outside of just promoting the concept of the totality of the Force and the need to accept both the light and dark, the collected poems, prayers, and meditations on the Force that was presented in the Guardians of the Wills novel by Greg Rucka also contains dire warnings for those who only accept a single component of the Force. My favorite entry in this regard is the work of Oz Ladnod, a poet of the royal court of Onderon. It states, "Those who set a course and cannot adjust their heading will break upon the rocks as surely as those who sail heedless of direction. We cannot change the direction of the wind, nor can we afford to be blown whichever way it so chooses. We act, we decide, and we are acted upon. So it is in all things that I wish to honor those who have come before. So it is in all things that I wish to prepare the way for those who shall come after. And I remind myself, in the Force there is no end, but only beginnings." As an order who thought they found their end in the Force, that is, a dedication to only the light side and not its totality, the Jedi met the disastrous fate as predicted by the poet from Onderon. The entry's warning coincides perfectly with Bendu's wisdom provided to Kanan. The Jedi set a course and strictly adhered to these tenets, failing to adjust their dogma in even the slightest ways for centuries. They abandoned anything that even remotely touched the dark side, and therefore rejected the Force itself. In this regard, the Order was heedless or reckless in their direction, never able to see the rocks that approached and the destruction that they would bring to the Order. Ultimately, unable to adjust their accepted understanding of the Force, the Jedi were broken upon the rocks, never realizing that they couldn't change the direction of the wind, that is, change the true nature of the Force that recognizes both the light and the dark. With this in mind, I believe that the Bendu's words to Kanan are true, that the Force retaliated against the Jedi for their failed understanding of it. In this way, One could almost view Anakin as the Force's entity to cleanse the galaxy of not just the Sith, but the Jedi as well, whereby a new order would rise to replace both, to accept and follow the totality of the Force instead of only one side of it. This would be where Luke comes in, where in fulfilling the statement in the Journal of the Wills, he will refine the view of the Jedi to accept the true, total nature of the Force. So there we have it. Why the Bendu is correct in stating that it was the will of the Force that the Jedi perished. We love making these videos, so why not subscribe for more fun Star Wars theories and discussions? Also, if you enjoyed the video, think about giving a like or leaving a comment. If not for me, for the will of the Force.